believe more people are well in the eyes of God than we believe that they are, or we think they are. And sometimes I consider the path that I took even in this thing. You know, when we came to Ohio, my family, my father was in the military, we were stationed here. And I was very young, and we found a church to attend. And they were like a Pentecostal church, a white Appalachian Pentecostal church. And so I grew up in that church. And they had particular ideas and particular beliefs on who was right and who wasn't right, who was saved and who wasn't saved. Later, I left home at 17, sort of in an atheistic mode for years, but I came back into the body of believers and began attending a black Pentecostal church, Apostolic Church, PAW. And they had other particular beliefs, other particular litmus tests that people must, if you don't do this, you're not well with God, but you must do this and this, and they had their own particular hoops you had to jump through to be okay with God. It's like every group has their own particular beliefs of what it takes to be right with God. And what I'm suggesting today, even as we begin looking at these churches, even the churches that we came up in that have that little warm spot in our hearts, begin challenging even those beliefs and looking at what we were raised to believe and ask ourselves, is it true? You know, so recently I've been ministering this message. And I've taken a lot of flack from a lot of traditional believers because they just can't wrap their arms around it. And you know, I've been getting calls about a ministry or starting a new ministry or a church and here and there, and I haven't even returned the calls because I'm a little bit perplexed as how to do this thing. Because I, you know, haven't been raised in the thing. How do you have church and sort of tweak it just a little bit different without suffering from a lot of fallout? And so I was feeling kind of negative, not really down, but just sort of like in limbo. And then so I went back to sort of my roots, you know. So I went on the internet. You know, I remember an old preacher, Noel Jones, that I really used to really enjoy and embrace so many years ago. And so I just went to his site and I found like 8 or 9 MP3 his messages, and I downloaded those and put them in my MP3 player. And I began to listen to those messages. And man, you know, he was sharp, and he still is. That same old style. I always enjoyed that. You know. But I began really after about the 3rd message, listening to the message, listening to the content of the message. And as it turned out, there were some other ministers on there as well. But it seemed like that all their messages were sort of being geared to hanging in there and holding on and don't give up now because the victory is right around the corner, you're going to be okay. And those were the type of encouraging messages that were being ministered. And what I realized about 4 or 5 messages into that is that the state of the people, the body of believers, is jacked up. They're depressed, they're messed up, and the messages that they're receiving are the messages that are encouraging them not to give up. And that it's going to be better right around the corner. But these are the same messages that were being ministered 25 years ago when I was with this group. And so that gave me, even from another perspective, a picture of what's going on in the body of believers. We're not getting better. We're getting worse. Things are getting worse. And the successful preachers, and their hearts are in it, are the ones that are trying to encourage people to hang on, because it's going to get better. But the reality is oftentimes, more often than not, it doesn't get better. And so I'm realizing and recognizing the revelation that we are just jacked up, we're messed up. And so I'm looking back in Scripture. And I'm seeing back, there was like a 400-year period where it was like God's voice was not heard. It was like the quiet period where God wasn't speaking to His people. Because they had been jacking up, and it was like God moved, okay? Moved His hand, moved His voice. Now, I was bringing this up to the believers I was around, and one said, you know, well, God is always the same. He never changes, blah, blah, blah. And I know, maybe it's a semantic. Of course, God didn't move because we probably all no longer exist. But the reality is, the eyes were blinded, the ears were heavy, the hearts were hardened, and they couldn't hear, they couldn't see, they couldn't feel God. What I'm suggesting today is you look around our nation, and you look at all the calamity that has taken place. You look at how many things have been messed up. You look at the morality issue. You look at Mother Nature. You look at even the drive, the drive that brought us to church just because we wanted to go there. And you would like feel oftentimes even the presence of God when you walked into a place. It's like not like that anymore. And what I'm suggesting is this isn't a bad thing. It's never a bad thing, because no matter what we go through, no matter what stages we go through or what kind of negativity we seem to be going through, it's all a path. It's all a journey of God trying to get us to where He needs us to be, okay? And all I'm suggesting today is that we need to begin to question or check our lives and look at ourselves and say, is this the way it's supposed to be? When I used to talk to young people, in juvenile detention who were not with God, who were just doing things that they weren't supposed to be doing, and they found themselves locked up, I would say to them, step back out of yourself, take a look at your life, and ask yourself, is this the way life is supposed to be? Now, I would use this particular, this little exercise for people who weren't even trying to embrace God. And look at you, you're in jail. Is this where you're supposed to be? It was too simple. But now I'm bringing this to believers. I'm saying, believers, step outside of yourself. Step outside of yourself and look at yourself. Look at your life. Look at the things that you've accepted in your life. Look at your fellow brothers and sisters and believers in the church, the things that they have accepted. You know some of them. You know yourself personally. How they are acting in church isn't how they're acting outside of church. What is the reality of the life of believers in this nation? Look at what we've embraced. Look at the hate. Look at the negativity that the church has been spewing. We're kind of jacked up. We're not right. Is this the way it's supposed to be? No.